Good evening, good morning, and good night. Welcome to the latest episode of The Nonprofits. I am Damien. I'm joined by Flabbergasted and Stephen. And in this episode, we're going to discuss global press freedom suffers sharpest fall in 50 years, report finds. In an article from The Guardian by Jason Burke on September the 10th, 2025, the IGO, International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, a report from them finds that worldwide, democracy has declined over the past 5 years in 94 countries, while only a minority of countries have shown any improvement. To quote the article, democracy faces a perfect storm of autocratic resurgence and acute uncertainty due to massive social and economic changes. To fight back, democracies need to protect key elements of democracy, like elections and the rule of law, but also profoundly reform government so that it delivers fairness, inclusion, and shared prosperity. Now, given that we are all living in interesting times, let's have a free-flowing discussion with the panel. Panel, what do you think?
I wish we weren't living in interesting times. Can we live in a time that's not interesting? That would be great right now.
Yes.
Well, actually, it's interesting, very interesting you asked that. Given you are a history teacher, when do you think, what would you say is the least interesting time? Give me a rough idea of what you think is.
Large chunks of medieval history or feudal era history, like things happen so slowly that for everything nowadays, like everything is interesting times. In the past 200 years, things have escalated so quickly, all the time, that every decade is new interesting times for different reasons. It's exhausting. It puts actually a lot of emotional and psychological stress on us as a species. We're not built for this.
And I think we were just saying in the pre-recording chat that in this information age, things are spread a lot more instantly. And to quote a local example, the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk in Australia, in my part of the world, we had public demonstrations of mourning for him, even though he barely had anything to do with us. And I think that's because in this information age, things get spread, ideas get spread, information or misinformation equally get spread. And so people here felt such an affinity for either him personally or his movement that they felt the need to mourn.
Yeah. And I think it also goes kind of part and parcel with this article that we see a worldwide spread of certain ideologies, like fascist ideology in the modern day, is spreading in a way that it didn't in the early 1900s. It absolutely spread, and you saw it kind of growing in multiple countries pre-World War II, but it's happening faster and more pervasively now because of the exact same spread of information, which unsurprisingly also affects this whole topic of democracy.
Indeed. Stephen, did you have any thoughts before I get into my little spiel?
Thoughts about interesting times? Yeah.
Yes.
It would be so much. I'm drawing a blank. Who's the Australian fuckface? What is his name? Kirk Cameron.
Yeah, we got quite a few of them. You might need to be a bit more specific.
No, sorry, the big one. The guy who said the bananas were God made. God designed the bananas.
That's Ray. He's New Zealand. God damn
I'm
it!
sorry.
He's not one of us.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
That's blasphemy right there.
Just for reference, the internet says Australian Christian fundamentalist under Ken Ham. So you can go argue. You can argue
Ray Comfort who said that bananas were made.
Ray Comfort, that's who I'm thinking.
Yeah, Ray Comfort, who's actually New Zealander. Yes, okay. You're right. Ken Ham is Australian from Queensland, but it's Ray Comfort who's the banana man.
Okay.
Bananas.
Get your Christian fundamentalist right. Damn it.
I'm just glad neither of those are American. For once, I'm not on the hook.
Exactly.
But they came to your part of the world.
Yeah.
And that's your fault. Thank you.
Yes, personally. Sorry, guys. I'll step myself out. But no, Stephen, sorry, continue on, Stephen.
If we're talking about the time, the days that we are in, obviously technology has been just skyrocketing in its acceleration, and it is changing the world so very quick. And that is really taxing. It is exhausting to try to be a conscientious person. That's something I was thinking about recently. How ethical people, they have they have such a bigger rock to push up the hill, because unethical people, they aren't going to be divided as easily because they don't give a fuck about differences that, or about doing what is right, whereas us people who happen to be ethical, it is so much harder for them to maintain cohesion, because there's so much to be divided on, and that only gets amplified, that only gets exasperated in this time and age where it is so easy to nail down just what exactly I think you feel is different, and now I can draw a line, and now I can push you out of the circle, which wasn't a luxury. It was so much easier for everyone to get along when we didn't have technology pushing our differences in our face.
And more importantly, if I could, sorry, more importantly, it's also not just our differences, but also like false narratives that are created to make those divides even worse as well, which is another contributing factor that is also exacerbated by technology.
But I will say that these kind of fractures, human nature is almost built to be attracted to the one that makes the most noise and generates the most outrage. Well, there's just something about human nature, and I think this is true for lots of times in history, in that the person who is leading them, like saying the most outrageous things, tends to get large followings and large amounts of money or sway or whatever, and ethics be damned, almost.
Well, that's what we learned through Survivor, right?
Yeah, I feel like as a species, we are so easily driven by emotion, and like that's our default state. Our default state is to react to things and to behave in a way based on feels over reals. And now we are living in a world where people know this, and they know to manipulate feels in a way that they knew before, but not quite to the same extent, and not with the same research, not the same reals to defend how to affect the feels. Right now we have studies that tell us how to most effectively influence someone's emotional state. But now we're living in a world where we're trying to be more reasonable. We're trying not to base everything on our emotions, and we're still getting trapped in this emotional state being what triggers so much of our decision making and so much about how we behave in society and how we treat other people in society. And
I think the word "trying" is the operating word there. So to quote from this report, the International Ideas Survey, the Global State of Democracy Report 2025, is published annually and is considered the most comprehensive of its kind, covering 174 countries. The three largest declines were seen in Afghanistan, Burkina Faso, and Myanmar, all suffering historically high levels of civil conflict, poverty, and political instability. Now, this part was most surprising. The fourth largest decline took place in South Korea, where the former president repeatedly targeted critical media, and his government used defamation lawsuits to silence journalists before being ousted earlier this year. Now, we do see a place like South Korea. So Afghanistan, Burkina Faso, and Myanmar, okay, they're all far away. They're all different cultures to us. But South Korea is probably the most, aside from Singapore, probably the most Western-friendly country there, and that took the fourth largest hit because the former president repeatedly targeted critical media. Now, where have I heard that before? Where have I heard that before, guys?
I'm not sure. I can't imagine any country and the leadership of that country actively and regularly targeting its media. Like firing people in the media, or like putting political pressure on companies to fire like people who are speaking out just because they're being critical of the government. I cannot imagine living. Oh wait, hang on, I'm in America.
Well, I will stop you there, Flabbergasted, because as a 501c3 organization, we do have to be careful that we attack ideas, not people or parties, and we don't name any living US politician or current political party.
Correct. So I'm not going to name anyone. I'm just saying that like I can't imagine that happening in a society. Definitely not America. That's all I'm saying.
No, not at all. The bastion of democracy for the last 50, 100 years. which is interesting because America was seen as it kind of pretends it's the standard bearer of democracy, but according to this report, it did have America. It did mention American report somewhere. Lordy. Here we go. But the US, though a country long regarded as a leading advocate for democracy worldwide, and true, has significantly reduced both its diplomatic engagement and its financial support for international democracy assistance this year. These developments have contributed to a weakening of international democratization efforts. In less than 6 months, US domestic political institutions have also lost much of their political sheen, increasingly serving as a reference point for executive overreach and offering more encouragement to populist strongman leaders than to pro-democracy hopefuls. And then in 2021, the International IDEA added the US to its list of backsliding democracies for the first time, pointing to a visible deterioration that it began in 2019. So yeah, the US is, I suppose, the cultural flag bearer. Has set itself up as the leader of culture for the West. I know that Australia looks to America for a lot of things, and I think Canada as well. So it is interesting how the IDEA, who are the international, I suppose, measurers of democracy, are seeing America as not quite as good as it makes itself out to be.
Yep.
And who would have thought? Who would have thought?
Yeah, it's like, and I hope that this is, whatever, a blip, a stint. I hope that this is a short-lived thing when when you're in a bad relationship and you see the writing on the wall, but you're not going to bail right away. I hopefully that this is that time of like, wait, what's really going on? Oh, I need to get my shit together and I need to get out of this relationship. That and what's the alternative, right? USA was the image of democracy done right because they kind of invented it, sort of, maybe. I'm not a big history buff, so I don't know if it's fair to say that the USA invented democracy, but they were that bastion, they were that flag bearer, and that went really far, and now it's a joke. And in their absence of that example being set, that's where strongmen step up to take their place in that vacuum. And it's setting a new negative example for how to treat journalists and how to treat people who are not necessarily in power, unfortunately.
And Stephen, it is interesting that you mention the media, because one of the I suppose I don't want to say repeated concerns, but there is a big thing about media trusts, and I think that I'm just hedging my words here so I don't fall foul of anything, but there is a trend recently of of political leaders and political authorities targeting media outlets, suing journalists for defamation, things like that. And I'm just looking at flabbergasted notes here: media consolidation and reduced diversity in press. Flabbergasted, did you want to talk more about that and give us your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think whenever we're looking at like press, because press is like kind of a measure of how free a society is. A society can only be as free as its press is. And the more restrained your press is, the more restrained your society is. It's a very good measure of that. So when we talk about societies that, I don't know, actively kill journalists, which is happening in parts of the world, when you have the active silencing of journalists through non-murdatory fashions, like when you make sure that the only people who are in the press are people that are of a particular group or have particular opinions or hold particular religious beliefs, then what you're doing is you are controlling that narrative. Consolidating media is a different way of doing it. When one singular person owns the vast majority of not just news organizations, but local news organizations, which is the case in my country. You have the same person who owns Fox News owns the vast majority of local news stations. And that means you have a cohesive narrative based off of one person's preferences, based off of one person, or at least the ability for that person to have that level of impact on it. And that is a serious problem, because you're not getting free and fair press if every news station, or nearly every news station, is repeating what one person wants them to.
Yeah, totally.
And that's I don't want to say quite a similar situation out here, though. In Australia, news outlets, particularly during the COVID pandemic, I think someone reading statistics, a quote somewhere, that the COVID pandemic was an extinction event for media outlets, particularly in rural and regional areas where the local paper has just gone, and so local stories can't be told. Things like that.
Well, yeah, and it's indicative of the fact that these old systems of journalism aren't they aren't robust enough to keep up with these new threats, and that's why they are struggling. There's just less finances for honest journalism, which makes newsrooms easy targets. It's easy to get them shut down when they don't have money in order to stay afloat, right? I'd never heard of this term before. Have you guys heard of the term lawfare? Not warfare, but lawfare, right?
Yeah,
Using
lawfare, yeah.
lawsuits. Okay, well then, it was new to me. But just this idea of like, we will wage war on you legally through lawsuits and defamation suits, just to silence reporting, and just the weaponization of a judicial system that's there to protect people is now being used to harm people. Or even the idea of like, even if a news outlet is keeping up and has digitized their content, it's still possible for platforms to throttle where and how their news gets distributed, depending on how cozy that particular tech company is with any particular government that's in power, and how that can impact independent media.
And I think you mentioned something I was about to raise as well, was the idea of tech companies. Is that tech companies, given that most people, particularly in the Western world, but even in the non-Western world, have access to social media, and a lot of stories get, a lot of news articles, but also opinion pieces get spread by social media, and a lot of ideas from those opinion pieces also get spread. But in a way, the big tech is the gateway, and we have seen not too long ago where governments and tech companies were working together to either promote or kill off stories that were inconvenient to either people in power or people who want to be in power.
Yeah. Well, here in Canada on Facebook, you cannot share news links. Like, that's just like, sorry, this is a news story. You can't share this news story in your feed, which on the one side, I'm just like, oh God, like, thank God we're like stopping this glut of misinformation from any Joe Blow website that's being sent around. But there's also the other side that comes with that as well, that it's so much harder to share legitimate news that we should be aware of.
That actually really concerns me, because if they're restricting news articles, but most of misinformation is being spread not through news articles, it's through memes and opinion pieces and like video clips and
shorts.
YouTube shorts. That's where misinformation is coming from, and the news articles are the things that are actually best combating that, when you can actually like pull up an article that cites its sources instead of a 15-second video clip where someone just says something dumb and no one is checking it, right? Yeah. So like that actually scares me a lot more. Like that like when you said that, I was like, oh really? That's terrifying.
Huh. Interesting.
But I'm going to ask both of you gentlemen, given that our forms of democracy, and I think I can say this for Canada as well, that our forms of democracy have historical roots, and even the methods of voting our leaders in do go back a few hundred years. What improvements would you like to see to the democratic processes in our respective countries that would make things fairer and more equitable and ensure we get the government we need?
Steven, you want to go first?
Hey, yeah. What is that? Yeah. holy fuck, like just like hard baking electoral reform into our electoral system, like that should be like, there is no way that our system from 100 years ago is going to be superior to what we can create now. We should always be looking for those opportunities to improve upon a system that is so important, especially our democratic process and representative. What's the
Say the word. Say the
word. Representational. No, I can't even.
That's close enough. No, that's right.
That's fine.
Yeah. Proportional representation. Just the idea that if 55% of people are voting for this one group, this one idea, that should be represented in our elected House chamber, and it shouldn't be dependent upon, well, they only got this percentage of this percent of that thing over here, so actually they only get this. Like, no, if people, it shouldn't. It should. There's. That's one great way to disengage voters, is by saying, yeah, you can vote, but it doesn't matter who you vote for, because you're in the wrong area. You're a blue dot in a red circle or whatever.
Yes, and I'm thinking more to Flabbergast's experience as an American citizen in America, where he doesn't get to choose directly. I think that is an interesting historical throwback that has some benefits, but also may not be representative of the will of the people.
No benefits. It is inherently an entire system based around making sure that a particular group of people maintained more power. It was an entire system based on racism. It was the entire system was based on ideas about racism and slavery in society, and making sure that places that were more populous could not outweigh the influences of the wealthier landowning elite classes of the South. It's a wholly messed up system. We got rid of the reasons behind it, but not the things, the systems themselves. If you ask me how to improve democracy in America, at least, we need to get rid of the Electoral College. Of course, y'all don't have that problem. But on a larger issue, like improving things that allow more people to get involved in politics, things like ranked choice voting, where and countries that have ranked choice voting have less issues with these things because people are much more representative of the people who are voting for them. Then we also have taking money out of politics, the places where you have more personal and corporate money invested in politicians, you have more corruption, you have more extreme the politicization of the parties themselves, you have more issues with all of that. There's so many different things, but money, representation, and like actual kind of more to its core democracy. Take another thing in America: money should not be considered free speech. That is one of the linchpins of the decline of American democracy. Was that particular decision. There's so many things we can do, and you will never have a perfect system. But we should at least be trying for a better one. And if you're ever in the position where you think the system that you live in is as good as it gets, you are already wrong.
That's a very interesting point there, Flabbergasted. My personal take on this is that democracy comes from the words power to the people, and I think I know that history and tradition are very, very strong things, but there's a reason that we do break with tradition and we do reform things is to make things better. So, however, when people do try to change things for the better, there's usually a lot of resistance, and sometimes that resistance is not able to be overcome. So, it's always, there's always a reform in progress, always a work in progress. And I don't know who said it, but there is a famous saying that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And I think the same goes for democracy as well. If you value your ability to vote and to share your opinion and to hear the opinions of others in a free and open society, then that's something that we need to fight strongly for.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
but Thank you all for listening and watching. And if you want to hear more from the nonprofits, click on whatever link is displayed right about now.